It's really not that hard to see the connection between relationships and our health. Relationships affect our health for better or for worse. And this includes our relationships with our kids. If those relationships are strained in our home, then, one of many things that is going to do is increase our stress, which impacts every system in our body. Relationships also impact our mental health. I am currently experiencing the truth that navigating the teen years as a parent comes with some unique challenges. Some of you know exactly what I mean. And that's why I welcome Kirsten Cobabe on the podcast this week. She is a seasoned teen and parent coach, and we discuss the nuances of parenting teenagers in today's fast-paced world. I've already been applying her tips on curiosity and awareness. That was one of my favorite parts of our conversation. But I also loved her ideas on how to foster and maintain a strong emotional connection in the midst of the inevitable challenges that are going to come our way as we parent teenagers. There is such great wisdom in here, guys. I'm so excited for you to listen. And just a reminder that you have one more week to enter the $100 giveaway, celebrating 100 episodes of the Daily Wellness Podcast. So check the show notes for super easy links to enter.
Welcome to the Daily Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Meredith. I've led my family on a transformative health journey for over a decade, and now I help other families do the same. This is a place where busy moms can learn about healthy living. I hope that what you learn here helps you feel empowered to take the next step in your family's health journey.
Hi, Kirsten. Thanks so much for joining the Daily Wellness Podcast.
I am so happy to be here.
Yeah, I am just thrilled because every time I see a post of yours on Instagram, I'm like, man, that is so good. That's such a good thought, like such a good little nugget, right, to take with me into the day. So I love seeing your content pop up, and I'm excited to dive in a little bit deeper and ask you some of the questions that I have. But can you kind of tell me why you do what you do? Like, what got you to this place of being a teen and parent coach?
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm excited to dive in too. So my journey working with parents and teens actually started when I was a teen myself. I was an older teen, but and I'd always worked with children before that. And I think partly because I came to this world with this mission, so to speak, and way of being, because I've actually, since I can remember, been connected to what I'm supposed to be doing here. It wasn't something I had to figure out. It was just there. And I'm really so grateful for this. I mean, it has helped me tremendously. And so my childhood, like many of ours, of course, had highs and lows. And some of my super lows were in my teen years, where they were scary. I was alone. There was a lot of figuring it out by myself. I mean, I was a teen in the 90s, so this is kind of, typical. But I also had friends who had the opposite happening, right? Lots of helicoptering. And I sort of had the opposite. And I think the reality is, what I saw as a child was that it's really hard to be a parent. And it was hard then. It's definitely hard now, in many ways harder now, I think. Yeah. And even though there's more supports, fortunately, it seems like those two things grow. I just remember feeling like this is hard for the adults. My parents are not sure what to do with me. And that feels scary. And I remember just thinking there's a different way to do this. And we also need more hands on deck, like more heads, more hearts, more hands on deck. And I want to do that and be that. And so I sort of created the values from my voids, and some of the people in my life when I was a teen, they were, I was just fortunate to have some role models and some guides during that era of my life. And I really want to keep that going because I know how impactful that is. And we also know through various studies that it only takes one person to really support a teen. So I really have been in this world for now over 2 decades. Some of the kids I've worked with are in their late 20s and have kids. And it's really a beautiful thing to be connected to so many teens over so many decades now, and actually be able to see the threads and the themes that are here throughout those years, even though the world has changed so much. And so I have deep compassion for people growing up in the world right now and the people that are raising them, because I know it was incredibly challenging for my parents, and I was not an easy teen. And and part of that was because I was actually quite sensitive, and I was really perceptive, and I wanted to know everything about everything. And I think I was a lot and they weren't necessarily prepared. And that's tricky. And if you're not, there wasn't as much emphasis on sort of the work, which as there is now, right? Everyone's like, okay, what do I need to be doing differently? And how can I grow and evolve?
Yeah. So many things that I love about what you've already said. Like, help me remember to go back here. I mean, one thing that you said is that you love having teens in your life. And that's stood out because I think that teens get a bad rap in the world today. And, maybe there's some reasoning behind that, but there's so much generalizing um, and kind of looking down on teens and teenagers, I think. And if you're new to listening and don't know about my family, I have 4 kids. I have an 18-year-old, I have 2 15-year-old boys, and then another 10-year-old girl. So my oldest 18 is a girl too. So girl, boy, boy, girl. And so am in the thick of it with the teens. And I just asked God to help me, not just as a parent, but help me to on my perspective of them, right? To be like, the teen years are great. Teens are wonderful, just to help me mentally to keep my perspective positive, when it comes to doing life with my teenagers. And that's helped a lot. I'm sure I didn't come up with that myself. I'm sure I heard somebody say, that you should kind of flip the script in your head about teenagers if you're a teen parent. So I love that you said that, just that you love having teens in your life, because I think teens can be just amazing. And I also really liked that you said things could be a little bit harder now for parents than it maybe used to be in some ways. And so what can you elaborate on that? Like, what do you think are the unique struggles that teens or parents of teens kind of have today that maybe we didn't?
Yeah, well, the big ones are, of course, that stimulation, tech, digital life that's here,
Mhm.
and how tricky that is to navigate as any human, and especially one who has a developing brain and who's highly vulnerable and doesn't always have the maturity or the context to understand even some of what's coming at them. And then that blended with very busy parents who might not be present to support that experience if they're having that, right? The things that can come your way, even if you never, give your kid a phone, right? They can still, all that's coming at them. And whether it's a friend's phone or through school or whatever, there's just a lot.
True.
And so how does one as a busy parent proactively prepare, protect, both of those things, their child for the world that we're in that's so rapidly changing too. It's still changing. We haven't reached a place where we're like, okay, now it's this crazy and it's going to just pause. It's still evolving and it's beautiful. There's amazing things coming through and all there's gifts in that. And just like with any tool, if we don't know how to work with it and if it's not age appropriate, then there's going to be things that are challenging. So I think that's a really big one, of course. And then we might talk more about this later, but just the n- nutrition, lack of movement, sunshine. I mean, there's all these pieces and parts sleep that get so easily swept under the rug, and they're really the foundational parts of every human being's life, and they're so skipped over. And it's really detrimental, I think. And yeah, those are some of the big ones that come to mind.
Yeah. So do those unique challenges kind of require a unique approach to parenting?
Yeah, if we don't have awareness about the world we're living in and what's really going on and our own stuff and who our child is, I remember thinking as a teenager, how do my parents not understand what's going on with me? It's so obvious. It was just if there had been a little more curiosity or awareness, there would have been some things that wouldn't have had to be so hard. And I have so much, again, compassion for parents, and no one's going to do it perfectly. It's just that unique lens of awareness of reality, who we're raising, who we are, and the fact that we might need to there's this concept of the old ways out, the new ways in. For me, it's a little bit more like, let's bring timeless truth into the now.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's plenty of things about the old way that were great and plenty that were not. It's not, one or the other, but the timeless truths, like true childhood development, what we know about brains, what we know boys need versus what girls need, generally speaking. Of course, then there's the individual qualities of someone's gifts and passions. But this stuff is real, and it's not facilitated necessarily. It's not always seen as important. And in schools, of course, it reinforces a lot more of sit still and be quiet, which doesn't really work for most children.
Yeah, true. What does being a curious, aware parent look like? Because I have a feeling, like you just kind of said that, and I'm like, I have a feeling that's like almost like a key. Like this is powerful thing to focus in on because, um, I don't know. I feel like, I can look back and I had wonderful parents that did an amazing job, but definitely areas of my life where they weren't curious or aware. And now that you said that, I'm kind of evaluating like, oh, am I? I don't, so can you kind of tell me like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. It almost brings me, before we dive into it, it's a little bit like some of these things are things we outlearn
Mm,
in our society or in school, or we come with them, I believe. And then we sort of are instructed that they're not great or they're
mm,
bothersome. And then that sort of can stay with us. So we're a few generations deep into that because we come here very curious, very aware, wired to attune. And so the other thing that's happening is your child is very attuned to you and they know what's happening inside of you. I talk about this all the time because it's so often overlooked, of course. And
yeah.
they're going to be responding to that. And so the more curious and aware a parent is, that basically means if there's a behavior, if there's something going on, whether it be at school, with friends, in your home with your teen, usually, especially with uh, a parent who might be already tired or taxed themselves, which is very common in our current modern day, it's harder to connect to that curious and aware part of oneself because you're in that different part of your brain that's stressed and not really present. And so it really requires a lot of practicing ourselves to slow down, to pause, to also grieve maybe what we never got when we were little and give it to ourselves so we can feel how freaking good that feels. And then we want to give that to our kids. And it doesn't mean it gets this curious, sort of present, aware piece. It gets confused with being passive or permissive and all. And it's not that at all. It's actually quite the opposite. It's like when your kid is, slamming their door and upset, instead of immediately going to, you can't do that, or,
Mhm.
how dare you, or whatever. They can, and they did, right? So it's not even true. It's really, we have to regulate ourselves as the adults you can still be upset, but then go, I'm upset, it makes sense. And my job is to be here for my kid. What might be
Mm,
happening with them? What might have happened at school? And if we really can slow down enough, you have the ability as a parent to see what's underneath it all. And this is what I help parents regain in themselves, because I think a lot of times, you know, that's easy to forget. Like, your kid.
yeah.
Actually, when we pause long enough and get curious, you usually go, well, I actually think it's probably because of this friend or this test or this teacher or this whatever it is, And if you don't know, then that's a symbol of maybe there's some disconnection that could, you know, that's worthy of
Yeah.
a little bit of reconnection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the example that you gave with the slamming door, the first thing that really happened there was the parent was aware of themselves. It's like, oh, that sucks. Oh, that hurts. This is hard. Oh, I'm disappointed.
Yeah,
Oh, that's triggered me. I'm triggered.
exactly. Recognizing that, because that's okay. It's not about not
Yeah.
feeling that stuff. And I think that's what gets tricky in this movement. And it's good to have conversations because we realize that's absolutely, of course. Of course, you're worried about your kid. Maybe you could never slam a door and there's a part of you that's suppressed. And all of this stuff comes through in the teen years. It's just like, oh, here's a mirror. There's another one. Here I am. And it always comes back to, oh, it's me. And this is the best and hardest thing because then it's on us, right? This is
Yes.
up to us, our response, our perspective, whether or not we're going to justify our behavior. Right. That's a real tricky one. Most people, there's a book I love that I recommend to literally everyone that dives deep into that. And it's called The Bonds That Make Us Free.
Mm.
How we hide ourselves from ourselves and how it impacts our relationships, and self-justification is something we all need to be more aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you have your options, right? You can stay in a reactive place of like, okay, I'm hurt, so I'm going to XYZ and it's justified because I'm hurt. Or we can like just acknowledge how we feel in that moment and then start to get curious and aware about our kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Give yourself that mothering or parenting or whatever it is that you need.
Mm,
And because you're the only one that can, really,
yeah,
especially if you're a grown adult, and then show up as that grown adult for the child that's literally begging you to.
that's good. That's really good. I think that's if we could just quit right now and that would be like such a good nugget for people to take home, like
All we gotta do, easy peasy.
well, I just love the idea of being curious. Like I've talked about that a lot in health, like because I always want a health practitioner that is curious, that's going to ask questions and dig deeper and find out why, and I want to be that way about my health and my body and, food and all the things. And so I just love bringing that characteristic and that trait into your parenting. Like it's so good.
It's so good. It's so good when you don't, it's not about falling into curiosity in the sense that your teen is right about everything or like you never make any decisions. No, it's just like, yeah, what must be going on here? What's
Mhm.
underneath the behavior? Or I wonder, what my child really needs in terms of, yeah, nutrition and or what would be balancing. I mean, the world of Ayurveda is all about this. Like what would
Mhm.
balance to the
Right.
situation? And there's there's so many answers and we're all
Yeah.
different in what we need. But yeah.
So root cause medicine and root cause parenting.
Yes, let's go to the roots. I'm such a root person. And it really makes sense that we can use any metaphor from nature, but the roots eventually become the fruits. And so if the fruits or the behavior or the whatever it is that's not feeling healthy or balanced, it's like, let's go all the way to the beginning.
Yep.
And not to get stuck there, but
Right. Which kind of reminds me of what you said about going back to those classic truths too, which was kind of about part of that was about development. And I want to ask, like, what do we need to know about our teens' development to kind of really come alongside them and, maybe lower our frustration levels at some points?
yeah, we really miss out when we don't parent or gather communally because then we don't see a lot. So what I mean by that is a lot of parents, a lot of people are raising children and they hadn't spent a lot of time. They hadn't spent a lot of time with children prior to that. And some people are naturals and other people are like, whoa, wait, what? And you don't even know if it's okay or if it's no, quote normal or whatever. And so one of the ways, this is why I love talking about development because it really is the basics. And so expect your teen to go through puberty, which means their hormones are changing, which means there's going to be not only growth spurts with, especially with boys and testosterone, right? But the girls, they're on a 28-day moon cycle. Their weeks are going to all look different. And boys are on a 24-hour sun cycle. And so it's completely different. And then also they might talk back. They might say no. They might, leave the house when you don't want them to. These things don't mean they're bad. And it also doesn't mean you're bad. There's this autonomy coming online. There's this questioning everything, which
Yeah.
when we can be with them in that, it can be really a beautiful thing. It's when our society tries to hijack their vulnerability, curiosity, and questioning everything that is very scary.
Yeah, it is.
Parents, and for me as an observer. But so basically, yeah, just know what's going to happen at 13, what's going to happen at 15, and prepare them. Not only prepare yourself, but prepare your teen. Hey, you're about to drive. I want to make sure you feel totally empowered to make the best decisions you can, or going to the dance or having a boyfriend or whatever the next natural thing is. There's these horizons that approach us. If we know what they are and we've sort of got a sense of what this landscape is supposed to look like, then we can, we can be aware of it and it doesn't surprise us. And so
Yeah.
really getting a sense of that, what's happening in their bodies, what's happening in their brains. Their brains are going through a complete rewiring overhaul. They need 10 hours of sleep. They're wired to stay up till midnight. They need to move. They need sunshine. And a lot of kids aren't getting any of that.
Right.
So no wonder they're a mess, right? It's messy even when everything is, quote, perfect and they're getting what they need, it's still messy. And so imagine if for years and years they're not getting what they need. Additionally, not feeling like their parents really see them or society really understands them. I remember that as a teen thinking, I like, yeah, who are the people that that aren't looking at me like I'm a nuisance?
Mm-hmm.
And teens feel that a lot. I'm one of the only people sometimes in their lives that's like stoked to see them and think they're great, even though they're making all kinds of mistakes.
Yeah.
And same for the parents. I mean, I treat parents and teens the same.
Yeah, that's so good. How do we learn about that? How did you learn about that? Is there like a book we should read or like what? How do we know what to expect?
Definitely. Maybe that's some of the only actual benefit from going to college for 7 years, other than the internships I had, which were amazing. Uh, a lot of it was nonsense and fluff and stuff I've had to unlearn, but the real truths of, I mean, there's this whole method. Eric Erickson has a whole approach to what happens in these stages. I really personally love Richard Barrett's work, and he has a whole section about adolescence and what's happening here. I mean, we need coming of age rituals, we need mentors, we need purposeful work, both boys and girls. We need so much more. We need to give them so much more than they're getting. And unfortunately, just the modern day way we live gets in the way for a lot of people of making the most important things the priority. But yeah, look up, I'd say the real, not the trendy developmental stuff, but the true developmental stuff that's been here since forever with what teens need and what's happening in their brain and their body.
Yeah, I mean that's what we need. We just give me a timeline, like what's happening in their hormones and their brain and like body development wise, and that would be great. So that's
Yeah.
helpful.
Well, we know too, just, if a teen isn't getting proper sleep, it actually affects their hormones. I mean, and their mood and their memory and their metabolism. It
Yes, absolutely.
affects their hormones. And that's just devastating because it's just as important as a baby's sleep schedule, which we're all obsessed with in our culture, right? What does a baby need? Or at least, generally speaking. And it's like the teenagers are like, meh, they'll figure it out. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're just as fragile in a way. And we really need to help them to realize they're strong. And we really need to help sort of channel this magic that they have at this stage and age so it doesn't just get yanked around and we raise a bunch of victims that are fragile and offended all the time.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be that way.
I love that.
And so, the more empowered we are and feel like I'm prepared for this stage and age, or I understand, even if I don't know everything, I know to expect X, Y, and Z, we're modeling that for the next generation instead of like, oh my God, I'm surprised and shocked by everything and I'm just reacting to everything. This is a mess. And that's what we're going to be modeling for them. And some teens will say, I don't want that, and they'll go a different way, but others will just think that's normal.
Yep. A few things that you've hinted at are just kind of the way our society is, the way, people do life and how busy parents are and how busy teens are and all the tech in our lives that kind of puts dividers up between us in some ways. What are your tips for engaging, and building that kind of emotional connection with our kids? I guess I'm curious because, that's something that I want my kids to be able to do even outside of their relationship with me. Like I want them to be people in the world that can engage with other people, and aren't just, sending messages on their phone, but they can actually look in someone's eyes and have a great conversation. So, I mean, what are your tips being in the world that we live in?
I mean, it's like do exactly that. It's be with them, look them in the eyes, spend time with them, see them as a person instead of this sort of obstacle or object, right? A lot of times parents can slip into like, you need to be like this so I feel good, or you need to be happy so I feel good, or whatever. It's just like your child's a person. Your job is to protect and prepare them for the actual real world. So that means being honest with them in age appropriate ways. And yeah, so look them in the eyes, get off your phone, use your phone for good. If you have a kid that's super into tech actually, and maybe they have an entrepreneurial spirit or something, don't try to change that, work with that, right? Channel that, make it make sense, give them the tools, find them a mentor. If you don't have a kid like that, that's great too, right? What is their thing that they're into? And as long as it's, not dangerous, then how can you support them in bringing their gift themselves. It's really just being who we came here as. And of course, there's a box that many people are told to fit in, and no wonder people think they're not good enough.
As parents too.
Absolutely, this has been generational, right? We're like generations deep into this stuff, and it's almost like we're so deep now that it's coming up and out like a purge, because we can't push it down anymore. Like this has to get worked through, or else we're gonna sink.
Yeah. I mean, spend time with them, like, yes, but do you have to kind of coach your parents on like what that practically looks like? How do you actually change your schedule to like have that time? Like I'm just thinking like, yes, I'm gonna spend time with my kids, but if we don't actually like if I don't like for me, if I don't, it's like getting my Google calendar. Like I homeschool my kids, so we are together a lot, but even in that, like a lot of it's just me teaching or being in that like we're doing step 1 now, step 2 now, step 3, and we're just getting through the day and we're not really necessarily connecting well. And so I still have to build that in like with my kids, even as a homeschool mom, because I can get in teacher mode and forget that I'm a mom sometimes. So like, I'm just wondering, like, how do you kind of practically put that into your calendar? What do you give parents certain tips about trying to make those changes?
Yeah, the tips and the scripts and all this stuff can be helpful. And then when I work with people one-on-one, I try to go as deep as I can go with whatever level the family is at. And so sometimes this means I'm like, what would you wish was different imagine being on your deathbed. Some people are ready for this question. Some people aren't. I'm like, what would you regret? What would you wish you did different? Like, start living that way now, because it's going to be here. Life is a blink. And you're with your kid, their child, for just a tiny part of your relationship with them. And actually, like, the better that is, the more likely you'll have one later. And so the biggest changes come from when we do that internal work and when we shift our perspective. When we look at our teens as someone it's like a project or it's transactional, they're going to feel that. And so that's what I guess I mean by like, look at them as a person, right? Who are they? What do they love? And oh my gosh, they're like here and right in front of me right now. And even if they're rolling their eyes, like, can I still see them as amazing and be the bigger person that can usher them into true connection, authentic relationship, accountability, also have some fun. We know how important unstructured play is for little ones. And unfortunately, they're not getting enough of that, which I think is part of what we're seeing now in the teen years and in the kids that are 20 something right now. Critical then, if you have any little kids, still do that. They still need that when they're teens too.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it all the time here in Maui, right? I go to these waterfalls. I've seen families and the kids. It's actually so beautiful. I'll see like a 12-year-old boy like dunking his mom underwater and then scaling the rocks with his dad. And it's like, it's so natural and inside of us if we can just return to the environments that support this, because we're in so many contrived environments, whether it's your Instagram feed or school. It's not reality, right? And it's not nature. It's not natural. And so, of course, we're going to see unnatural behaviors or out of balance behaviors in response to this funk that we all, I do believe, know inside of us. We have the ability to, at least if we can clear our lens, to see like what's real and what's not.
Yeah. I think also being flexible is really important, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, oh yeah, like we used to do like this fun thing, but then like our lives kind of changed and that wasn't really working for us anymore. And so an example is our family dinners. And so like being a homeschool family, and my husband works from home. So we're all 6 home, like a lot during the morning and the day, but then in the afternoon and evening, everybody kind of goes, woo. So we had to kind of change to where, if we want to have a meal together, a lot of times we'll have breakfast, or if we want to have a family dinner, we did that on Friday nights for a long time. Now it's Sunday nights because everybody was gone on Friday nights for like 8 weeks in a row. And I was like, okay, like we've got to change things up, So I think that's also important because your teens' lives change. Like my boys are about to get jobs this summer. And so we're going to change again,
Yes.
So I think you have to be flexible with it too. And like one thing that might have worked in the past for connection may not work always.
Yeah, as your kids evolve, you're going to have to. excuse me, parents evolve as their teens evolve, or, or you can resist it, but that's just a losing game. So it's like, yeah, it calls us into that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good point because, yeah, your family looks different than another family, and knowing your values and knowing how you want to raise your kids.
Yeah.
And for super duper busy parents, just get back to that question. It can be 5 minutes at night. It can be special something once a month. I mean, if you're working 3 jobs, and it really is, you're gonna, like you said, have to kind of put it in the calendar and really make a point
Yeah.
to make it to really honor the sacred and
Right.
special. And that's going to look different for every teen. And you want to do it in a way that really honors who they are and who your family is.
Mm-hmm.
Teen years can become more about quality over quantity, but teens want to hang out with their parents. I think it's one of the myths that they're not interested in hanging out with their parents. They just don't want to hang out with their parents because when their parents are like, did you do your homework? And you shouldn't say that. And it's like, that's not fun for anyone ever, but especially teens.
Kirsten, you're stepping on my toes.
Perfect. It's true. And everybody, and it's like, everybody's in that because they're like, wait, how did I go from 4 to 14? And now they're talking back to me, or they're, whatever it is. And it comes at a shock. So again, if you know what's to come, it won't be as much of a shock. If you know that everything's an invitation for your evolution, then it's amazing. I mean, not to say you're not going to be annoyed. Of course, we're human.
Yeah.
And return to that truth and see what's actually happening. It's quite amazing. And I believe that, your teen picked you for a reason and vice versa. And so, yeah, it's not on accident. It's like, I don't know. I was born in New Hampshire, and what is the motto? It's like live free or die. And sometimes it just reminds me of, it's like evolve or die. Not that it has to be that intense, but it's
right.
Evolve or like suffer.
Yeah.
Because
for sure.
That's what life's asking of us. And teens really are asking for that too. And it doesn't mean you didn't do good enough. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It just means here we are in a new era.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's tough sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. And I'm being stretched. They're being stretched, literally getting taller, and you're being stretched in every way. It's actually kind of psychedelic, right? You're looking at a mirror. You are looking at 4 of them.
Yep.
Every day.
Yeah. I do think the communal aspect that you mentioned before kind of plays into this, because when I am with, moms that have teenagers and they share about their lives, or I see our teenagers interacting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not the only one. Like it's such a relief to know that like your kid is actually acting in a somewhat, age appropriate manner, even though it might annoy the heck out of you sometimes. Was like, oh, he's not the only one that does that. Okay. Maybe it's not so bad, right? Maybe there is hope. Or for me, just personally as a mom, wanting to like feel like somebody gets what I'm going through.
Yeah. We get all of that from community. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're just whatever teen boys do or whatever teen girls do. It's like you get to see those dynamics. You even get to see your kid helping a little kid if there's younger kids around, right? And like, oh, he is like respectful, or she's
I do nice things for people. He's amazing.
And like cleaning up or whatever, right? It's like when we do observe often, a lot of parents I work with, they're like, apparently he's great at his job, or she's great at school or whatever, and their teachers love them. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's actually quite amazing how amidst these tricky times and really transformational just stage of development, there's so much good that these teens are doing. And that is how I see them, not because they're perfect, but I try to see this with all people that I'm working with, because we also know that when we see the good, more of the good happens. And actually positive reinforcement is so much more supportive and effective than almost anything else.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I've seen that like be so true in my life with my kids. And so how do we have like a positive attitude about technology? I was like thinking about, what to talk to you about. And I'm like, well, like one of the hardest things with my teens is just not them having phones or technology necessarily, but also me managing it, like so that I kind of know what's going on on their phones and, you know, on their laptops or whatever. Like it's a lot. Like it's a lot to manage for multiple children, even for one, I'm sure.
Mhm.
And I don't really always know that I'm making the right decisions. Like, should they be able to do this or that? Should I let them have this app or not? Like, I don't even know. Like, it's so much, so much.
It literally is everything. Everything is in that phone, right? You can look up anything. There's just infinite. It's everything. And so it should feel overwhelming. It makes sense, right? And if it's overwhelming for us with like the adult brain,
Hmm.
imagine how stimulating slash overwhelming it is for a child or a teen's brain. And
Yeah.
so some of it's, yeah, you can block all the apps, you can have time limits on it and all this stuff. And that can be really important. Also, modeling what you want to see. If you're always on your phone, that's your teenager is going to call you out and be like, you're always on your phone. Like they're just not going to buy it. And so we have to really be aware again of our own patterns. And then also it's if you have a teen in age appropriate ways, of course, talk to them about, hey, here's the reality of having a phone or video games or whatever the thing is. Here's what's there, and again, age appropriate ways. And this is important for all of us to understand. All of us have to behave like this and not like this. Do this, but not this. Just like we would with any other tool or group experience or whatever. And some teens are really mature and they get that everything on there is there forever, or you know, what bullying is, or just like all the things that could kind of come at them. Others are not. And so really
Yeah.
got to know your kid and have that super, super trusting, solid relationship where they also know that if anything they're uncomfy with or uncertain about, they immediately call you in. And that we have to tell them what those things are. We can't just expect them to know it. Like if we have a hard time
Yeah.
talking about something, how can we expect them to be, really comfortable with something that's never been discussed that they might feel bad about or be scared
Yeah.
about? So, and then on top of that, if your kid's really into video games, instead of the immediate, like needing them to stop, for example, this is just a common one, play with them. See if they'll let you play with them for a little bit. Get into their world. That's where you can be influential and start to kind of pull them out, but not in a way that's like littered with agenda, because they'll feel that, where you're really actually like, what's this game all about? Can I play with you? And be in that if they'll let you. And then there's ways to sort of move through that into a world beyond a video game if you're trying to get them back.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my next question is like, what do you feel is appropriate if they're just not really respecting your boundaries, or maybe not even that, but you can just see what they're doing isn't healthy and they're not really taking your advice, or making changes about that. Like, is there a relational disconnection there, or what would you do at that point?
Yeah, it could be. It's like it's looking at, is this because I haven't made the time for my kid and they have filled it with video game? Is this because my kid's particularly wired to be more interested in video games? Like some kids are just more into it for all kinds of reasons.
Right.
Is this because they don't have any friends and they're looking for community? These are very different reasons why a child might be playing too many, or a lot of video games. So knowing the root again, like what's actually happening here. And then I think there's something about, I know that so many moms are playing the mom and the dad role. There might be some dads that are kind of playing both too. And there's this reality that it's not always this black and white, but if you have a son and he's playing a lot of video games, like, and dad's around, he wants to hang out with his dad more than he wants to play video games. It just needs to be like fun and loving and real, not like come take out the trash and get a lecture. Your kid
Right.
won't ever choose that over video games, but they will always choose you if it's actually real.
Right.
They would rather that. I mean, no matter how good the video game is, because we're hardwired to be connected to our family, even in the teen years where there's that differentiation happening and they're starting to pull away. There's still ways we can honor that and stay connected to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The hardest path forward, but obviously the best, right?
Yeah, exactly. The only reason I would, the only other option or the only other one of the other examples that comes up as we were kind of talking about those differences of the reasons why is, there's some scenarios where it's just like, if this is not healthy or this is unsafe, and it actually no more until we reset. And that would be true if you were 45, 55, or 14. Doesn't matter, right? So that's a different thing. But yeah, no, it's the like harder path, but it's the more direct, more real, these things we're talking about that actually ends up giving you both what you want more of, which is a real relationship.
Yeah. What would you say are some good ways to connect with your teen if you feel like you've already kind of drifted, like there's already kind of a gap there and it's even kind of hard to take that first step forward and start building again?
Some parents I work with, I will encourage them to say, I've been thinking, I've been reflecting. I think I've missed a lot. Like I've missed things you've said, things you've done. I've misinterpreted them. And I'm realizing it now. And I just, and then maybe speak in like a narratives, or just like, maybe it could be specifics depending on what's happening in your family, but really just own that. I might have missed something along the way. I'm really so sorry, and actually like full of regret, because you were probably just trying to tell me this, or you were probably trying to get this, and I didn't really see it. I didn't really get it. And if you're open, like I'd love to sort of reset some of these things, build back your trust. And this to some parents sounds like groveling or passive. This is the most intentional, challenging work to model accountability that a parent can do.
Yeah.
And you don't grovel. No. They need you to be strong. They need you to be steady. It's not about tiptoeing. It's really, really clear. Like, I messed up and I want to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that. What would that look like for you? Here's what it might look like for me. Because I'm so stoked to be your parent. Like, I'm so lucky. And you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to perform. Neither of us do. Thank God. Okay. Let's move forward in this way if we can. Because a lot of parents are recognizing when they have a 15-year-old, shoot, I did this all wrong. Like, quote, wrong.
Yeah.
And they're seeing it later and going, I wish I knew then what I know now. And so say that to your teen and be like, man, if I could do it over, here's what I would do.
Yeah. I think that humility and asking for forgiveness is really powerful. Like that, starting at that place, it hits a place in the heart, right? Where you're like, wow, this is really sincere. And they were willing, they can see that took humility, right? And so they can see that you were willing to humble yourself and admit that you were wrong about something, right? So then it can open them up to vulnerability, right? And kind of help that vulnerability cycle like open up again.
Yeah. And for parents, you might, prepare yourself. They might say, yeah, I really didn't like when you did XYZ. Just listen, don't defend. It doesn't mean they're 100% right and there's not more to the story. But if you want to have that relationship, we have to offer that understanding first.
Yeah.
And same with that accountability and humility that we're talking about. If you bring it to them with, and I expect you to forgive me, and I have this agenda, right? That not your accountability. So it has to be free. It has to be truly a gift.
Yeah.
And we really, really want teens, at least I do, to be connected to that part of them that can sense when there's something off about something and trust it. So we need to show up as emotionally congruent, not bullshitting, basically,
Right.
faking, because that we don't want them to think is normal. Because if they'll start to then not trust themselves and all this stuff that we've all had to unravel, most of us at least, from our child.
Yeah. I mean, if you get to that conversation where you're kind of apologizing for what you missed or maybe didn't get right in the past, even if they don't respond well, it's still the right thing to do, right? Yeah. It's the adult thing to do. It's the thing that you want to model.
Absolutely.
And it could, even if they're not ready to show it, it probably still touched them, and maybe they're not ready to show it. Maybe you need to go at it a few times, but I think that it's still the right thing to do, even if they don't respond the way you want.
Exactly. It's the right thing to do. I love that.
Yeah. How do you help a teen take ownership of their responsibilities in life?
I love this. I was thinking about this. reflecting on this, and there is this story of like, once you're an adult, it's horrible. Enjoy your teen years. Like, I say these things to teenagers. And while there's some truth to it, right? It's like, I know why we say this. And what if instead of, well, now you're 15 and you have to take out the trash, it's like, it's a more empowered perspective of, as we grow older, we have more responsibility. We also have more choice, more autonomy, more freedom. Like, what do we want to do with our power? What if we taught teens that they were more powerful than we even have words for? And not in an ego way, but in a way of like, what do you want for your life? And actually, like, we can create that. You can create that. It's so possible. And yeah, hard work and all of that. But when it's like real and it's yours, it's worth it. And so one of the ways, of course, is modeling this, that there's this beauty in being responsible. You can create the life you want. You can have a really fun life, whether you're 15 or 55. And so I think about that because so often the responsibility means like chores and doing stuff you don't want to do, and just be grateful and all this stuff. And it doesn't really work. It doesn't really land. It's just, it makes you seem out of touch to your teen when you're sort of just saying those things that parents say.
Yeah.
Like go deeper, even when they're saying it's not that deep, right? And I think it's funny when they say that, because then I'll always go with like, oh, it's not. Okay, what is deep? What are the things that are, right? It's like, improv your way through this. Whatever they're saying to you, meet them in that, like you would improv, like it's a dance. It doesn't mean you ultimately don't get to another part of it, but you're going to either keep the door open or you're going to shut it. That's kind of bring us into another conversation, but I hope I sort of touched that responsibility piece.
Yeah.
That's the hard thing about school, I think, like public school, is that it's all about all this responsibility and tasks and deadlines and all this stuff, but it's not interesting, it's not relevant, there's not a real reward, especially now that grades are only going to become more obsolete for most people and the future. And so it's like,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. We're in the geometry with the boys this year, and they're like, why in the world do I need to know like this much about triangles? Like, this is not relevant to my life. And so, like, I know like those kinds of responsibilities, like getting your math done, I can understand why that's hard. And I don't know if this is right, and because it doesn't even work all the time, I think maybe it'll work in the long run, to be determined. But like I try to just turn it around and be like, okay, this is like something that you don't really want to do, like, but you kind of have to do if you want a high school diploma. Like, do you want a high school diploma? Yes. Okay. Well, this is one thing you have to do. So what kind of person do you want to be right now with this thing that you don't want to do? Like try to like just focus on the character building aspect of that thing.
yeah.
So, I don't know if it's right.
Well, it can be, right? It's like that can really be supportive. We are in this like character deficit kind of space right now. It seems like where merit and character and all these things and values are just sort of disappearing, and they are important. And I think there's also ways to, so the first thing I thought of when you said triangles, I'm like, imagine if they were teaching about pyramids and what triangles represent, like tension, all this cool stuff in history. Or imagine if we taught math with like dollar signs in front of it. This is something my husband got from his grandpa. It's like, it would be so much more interesting. And so how do we make it relevant? Or maybe even how do we go, what would make this more fun? Is there a way we can do that? And if not, like, I'll walk with you as through this mud that's so like seems so silly and irrelevant. Like, these are some of the ways we can meet them in the why isn't it another way, and still make it through rather than be victims.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of meets them at like their curiosity too. Like, why does this matter? Why is this important? Why do I need to be responsible for this? Right.
Right. And it's a great question. Oh, the history of school. And then all of a sudden you're like down that rabbit hole and you're like, oh, interesting. There's a lot here and we're still doing this. Okay. And then you can be like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. This system is slow to catch up to what's happening now. And it's really tricky. And it feels like a waste of time. And let's figure out together how we can make it as meaningful as possible and get it out of the way and move on to like the bigger and better things that I know you want for your life.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So, I mean, because that's a life skill, I think. Like you have to do things you don't want to do sometimes. And so,
Yeah, yeah, and there's a difference between saying we all have to do things we don't want to do and being like, right? Why is it like this? If we could create a world, what might it look like? Right?
yeah.
And then you're really just with them, not only in how silly it is or how irrelevant it is, but also the opening of creativity, curiosity, empowerment,
Yeah.
putting their energy, at least maybe that's even motivational to kind of get some of that annoying stuff done and then do what you really want to do.
Yeah. True. I love that. Well, one thing I really wanted to kind of focus in on before we wrap up is like the health side of teenagers, really. I kind of prepared you for these questions, I know, because I don't know, just as I don't know, because I'm interested in these things, or I'm kind of doubting every mom thinks this way, but like when my teen is kind of grumpy, I'm like, I think you need some like minerals or something. This is where my brain goes. I'm like, if I see some kind of like attitude or whatever, I'm like, you have not slept enough, or you have, whatever correlates with whatever I'm seeing. And sometimes I don't know, I'm just guessing, but I'm like, there might be like some physiological reason why you're acting this way. Have you seen that in your own life with your kiddos or in the people that you have been serving? Like, are there some kind of physiological things happening that affect our teens' moods and behaviors and things like that?
Everything's connected. And I have the same response that you do. I'm like, what's missing here?
Yeah.
And sleep, hydration, minerals, including really good salts, really good fats, like all this stuff. I mean, of course, the whole, we know the sugar company paid whoever to make the food pyramid and it's a giant mess. And some people still buy that. And really, like, if we get back to it, there's a simpler way to eat and to be. And also pulling in Ayurveda is I'm in this world with my husband. We do lots of stuff related to that. Knowing your constitution, your body, what will balance you versus your sister or your brother or whatever is so, so important. And like we said before, the teen years are already messy when everything's great, but imagine getting 6 hours every night instead of 10. Imagine asking to eat at school or whatever, like all this stuff that interrupts the natural flow and way that we all have. And so there's a lot of obstacles. And then, so it's about solution, kind of finding the solution for your scenario and who your teen is.
Yeah.
And this will be different for everyone. Of course, I'm not like a health practitioner, but fresh air, clean water, movement, sunshine, nutritious food, whatever that means for your family, your kid is going to be, that's just foundational. It's impactful, and they do truly need it. Just like your baby needed that sleep and those naps and that, you're breastfeeding or whatever, and looking in their eyes. And we know there's all that stuff going on. The teens have a version of that too, and they do need our support.
Yeah.
Not necessarily thinking about that. Their long-term consequences, part of their brain isn't fully online. And there's so much in the way, whether it be screens or homework, or anything sort of impacting, again, that natural flow of those family dinners or cooking together or taking a walk or going swimming.
Yeah.
And okay, so yeah, the other piece is like, I mean, I was just kind of remembering this as I was, aware of what you love to talk about. I'm not saying soy is wrong, but you might want to do research on that sort of stuff, like it and how it's evolved over time and how it impacts hormones. Same, it's like excitotoxins that overstimulate our system. That's a word that I don't hear very often at all, that my husband brought into my worldview like 10 years ago. And the teen brain is quite sensitive, so things will overstimulate. If they're drinking caffeine drinks, that's having a very different, it would affect any of us. Their system is so sensitive.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I think about those things, just hormonally, what are they eating, and what are the daily practices, and how might that be impacting them? Because the mood you're seeing might not be because they hate you. It might be because they're starving and sleep deprived.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the statistics are showing us that teens now are, more depressed, more anxious, more suicidal, more higher rates of anxiety. Like they're struggling with a lot. And there's a lot of research coming out showing how much these physical things that you mentioned, the food, the sleep, the getting outside, how much that can actually help. And so, I mean, I'm not saying medication is wrong, that's completely between you and your family and your practitioner. But there are lots of things that you can do to help your kid like improve if they are struggling with some of those things. And that's why we create the resources that we do, because one of the main challenges to that is it's a whole nother thing for moms to learn about, right? Or for parents to learn about is, oh my gosh, like I have to learn about their development and what's going on in their brain and what food they need and how much to give to them and fats and what kind of minerals. And, I always just say, you just give them like real food and you'll be ahead of everyone else. But, so you don't stress out about, the macros and all of that with your teens. But, it is a lot to learn about. And so I love that you have tons of resources for where parents can come and learn. And that's why I make this podcast, so parents have an easy way to learn. And so I would just encourage parents that are listening, they're feeling a little overwhelmed when we talk about this, because that can happen. You're not alone, because it is a lot to learn about. You're trying to learn about your own health, and now you have to think about what your teens need and all of this. And so just use the resources available to you, pop on a podcast, get in your member group where you could just find resources really easily. But that kind of stuff, like just ask for help, seek help, like use the resources, and you can get there.
One resource parents might really love is the Yuka app. And do you know this app?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great because you can scan stuff and it's pretty good. Like it knows that perfume effects is an endocrine disruptor and because this, yes, food and all and nutrition and not using a microwave. Like microwaves are just, in my opinion, I mean, I know why people use them. It's fast and easy, but it does change the food.
Yeah.
I grew up super crunchy, just for full transparency. I was like born at home and lived on a farm. And honestly, it saves me to this day. And it doesn't mean you have to have that childhood.
I love that so much, though. That's awesome.
But there's something about the rhythm of living with nature that even if you take, that's why there's all these, nature sort of resources for teens, or even those, wilderness therapy kind of schools that were more popular at one point and are, of course, controversial, but a healthy, balanced one. It just got you back outside. You were cooking your food, you were sleeping on the ground, and all this stuff is recalibrating, right? So just anything you can return to that's natural. It doesn't mean, again, like, medication's a whole thing you deal with your doctor. But when can you see the sun? When can you take a walk? When can you return to nature? Use that Yuka app, because the other piece is what they're putting on their skin and on their hair and all this stuff. Just as important as what they're putting in their body, because our skin is our largest organ, and everything we put on it goes right to our bloodstream and into our body, into our system.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Like we have to think about like what goes in us, what goes on us, and everything that's around us. If we want to like improve, right? We have to consider all those things. It's not just what we eat, and it's not just the products. It's a combination of everything.
It's also what we digest, what we feel, what we think.
Yeah.
And so this thing that keeps chiming in, and I know we're sort of at the end, but it feels important, that overwhelm and all the things that parents have to do to take care of themselves and their children, I think is even also impacted by potentially grief or anger, sadness around what we didn't get, or we're also helping our parents to do all that. And meanwhile, like maybe feeling like we didn't get what we needed on some level, or why do I have to do it for everyone, like myself and like everyone around me? And that, I just want to honor how challenging that is, because when you are truly accountable and you're self-reflecting and you're like doing the work and you're not self-justifying and you're clear, everything is messed up. And it's like, it requires some grieving, I think, because when we grow, we're like, whoa, that all that happened, and like, might not feel fair, or all kinds of things. And I just really want to honor how hard that is. And it would be, quote, easier to not even do any of it. But of course, we know that's not even really true.
Yeah.
It isn't bliss because it comes full circle. It's just a longer path.
Yeah. We don't want to keep carrying that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that so much. What are some ways that people can connect with you and your resources if they love what they're hearing or if they just really feel like they might need some extra help with this?
Yeah. I have a parenting group online. It's called Parenting Wave, and you can visit that, parentingwave.com. And then I work with parents who are stoked and excited and want to shift and deepen. And so you can reach out to me for that work, 12-week minimum for parents, and that's at kirstencobabe.com.
Okay. We'll make sure we link all of that in the show notes for everyone listening. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for your time. I really appreciate you sharing with me, but also just like knowing what you're so passionate about and knowing that you're helping others with all of this just really makes me happy. Like you're doing such good things in the world. And so I'm thankful for you and for serving us by sharing your wisdom today.
I feel the same about you. And, yeah, we're all remembering and reminding each other.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks for listening to today's episode on the Daily Wellness Podcast. We hope that you found it helpful for your own wellness journey. And if so, we'd love for you to leave a review. Then come back and listen for review shoutouts on upcoming episodes. For more information, check out the show notes and connect with us on our website, dailywellnesscommunity.com.